When the Porsche guys had not those problems with Raquel Tonda, and afterwards they got punished again. That means the guys were a little bit unlucky. They set the fastest lap. That means they're in a good shape. It was just unlucky. Maybe next time we see more interest race.
Well, even Bernd Schneider realising that the Dalmas McNish Ortelli's Porsche main problem was a Formula 3000 champion called Ricciardo. They finished third, 3 laps down. Ludwig and Zonta 2 laps down on the indefatigable Schneider and Webber. But for Ricciardo Zonta's error there, perhaps we would have seen a very different race. But it was Schneider and Webber who came away with a narrow 3-point championship lead in GT1 from Suzuka. Beretta, Lamy, Dupuis beating Wendlinger, Bell, Matsuda, Oyser, Becker, Van and the rest at Suzuka, and continuing to lead the GT2 championship. Now looking all but certain to take victory in the series. Carl Wendlinger, their only realistic threat, and he was fast falling behind. Join us for more in just a moment. 1998 FIA GT Championship at Donington Park. Mercedes first and second on the grid, but look at this. The two works Porsches inserting themselves between the silver AMG cars down on the run into the first corner. And at Redgate, Mercedes first and second has become Porsche first and second. Bernd Schneider out on the grass, having started from pole, and he'll rejoin in the middle of the GT2 class leading battle. 125 laps to go, so plenty of time to recover. But Porsche first and second, they'd looked very quick earlier in the season. They'd been quick at Suzuka. Could they now post their first win of the season in the second half of the year? Well, Alan McNish at home at Donington Park leading the race, certainly hoped so. Over Altzen behind, having to give second place over to the number 2 car started by Ricardo Zonta. The Brazilian really gaining in confidence and speed all year long. Bernd Schneider fighting back, and here taking a place off the Eric Bernard and David Brabham Panos. That's to go back up into 4th place. He was 8th at the end of the first lap. But it was all to go wrong for Alan McNish. The judges deciding that his race had started slightly before everybody else's. He had overtaken before they crossed the start line. Well, he had started 3rd on the grid. Uwe Altzen had started 7th on the grid, but somehow got away with being in 2nd place at the start line. The judges clearly not able to take in 2 cars at the same time. So after the stop-and-go penalty, Alan McNish really disappointed to lose the early leads. Mercedes now 1 and 2. GT2 battle absolutely fascinating. Corois's Marcos was on pole once more. Stefan Ortelli had started last after having an overboosting problem in qualifying. And he reeled in the leaders, passed both Chrysler Vipers in 2 corners, and then showed them what they hadn't been able to do all race so far, i.e. that it was possible to overtake Coroisa. Having seen that, Ortelli once more had a go, Olivier Beretta once more had a go, and then got past, and Carl Wendlinger followed suit fairly shortly after. But Coroisa had given us a fantastic battle for the lead of GT2 early on. Now Stefan Ortelli in the 56 Rooks Porsche with its sequential gearbox, leading the 2 Chrysler Vipers. Bernd Schneider leading Klaus Ludwig in 1st and 2nd. The Panos 3rd just before the pit stops. But that was to change because the number 2 car had a much quicker pit stop than the number 1 Mercedes, and positions were reversed as they came out of the pit lane. Klaus Ludwig leading from the number 1 car. So Ludwig and Zonta leading from Schneider and Webber. Dalmas McNish in 3rd place in the number 7 Works Porsche, ahead of Bernard and Brabham despite their stop-and-go penalty, or perhaps because of maybe they could have been leading the race overall. It's always hard to tell. Well, battle between the Mercedes, the 1 and 2 cars swapping position as Eric Bernard has a prop shaft let go and he retires the Panos, and that must be a frightening thing. Prop shaft, of course, running beside the driver's elbow down through the centre of the car. The number 1 machine then, Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber starting to romp away from Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta. The Aussie doing a great job in the middle stint. Ludwig unable to match his pace, and then Schneider and Zonta fighting all the way through. But the car that had started from pole was once more beset by problems. Stefan Ortelli bringing the 56 Rook Porsche into the pits. GT2 being led by Beretta and Lamy from Carl Wendlinger, and Justin Bell having his 2nd race in the car of the year. But there was no doubting who was going to win the GT1 category. After Porsche's early problems, their promise had melted away, And the number 1 machine coming to the line. Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber winning once more. Donington, the 7th race, 7th win for Mercedes. Their 4th 1-2, their 3rd 1-2 victory in a row as Ludwig and Zonta come home in 2nd place. And the beers are out because Mercedes, in round 7 of 10, have tied up the team's championship. So Schneider and Webber the winners from Ludwig and Zonta. Dalmas and McNish disappointed to finish only 3rd, a lap down ahead of their teammates in 4th place. Gunnar Thiemann in the Persson car ahead of Armin Hahne and Andreas Schelt in the Zaxby car, gaining a point there as well. And now it started to look as though Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta might be being left behind. It was only a 7-point margin, but Bernd Schneider and Mark Webber were starting to ease away. Would it continue? Well, Oyster Becker and Van Dis qualified from 2nd place, but they gained on the last corner. So Franz Conrad and Alfred Hager 2nd ahead of Justin Bell and Carl Wendinger in GT2, but Olivier Barretta and Pedro Lamy winning again. Another victory for them. Their 6th from 7 starts in the GT2 category, really running away with the championship. Round 8 of the series at Austria's Grand Prix circuit, the A1 ring, and once more cold and foggy conditions. But once more, that didn't stop the Mercedes starting from the front of the grid. 1st and 2nd again. But this time, pole was taken by Ricardo Zonta. He'd been on pole at Donington Park, and he'd also been on pole at Austria. Ricardo Zonta now really starting to show great race pace. The Persson Motorsport cars coming down the inside of the first corner, nearly taking their colleagues in the AMG cars out, but somehow it all stayed together. Bernd Schneider having trouble here, fighting off the Persson car. Little collision there, and the number 11 machine off onto the gravel. Christoph Bouchou coming back on and recovering slowly. Bernd Schneider being very forceful in his determination to stay right with Ricardo Zonta if at all possible. Well, moments later we were to see bits flying off the number 1 car, the little front nose wing disappearing there from the left-hand front corner. Now these are vital on the V8 cars to provide extra downforce at the front and an extra bit of turn-in sharpness. There it goes, damaged in the collision with the number 11 car, and that was to induce a handling problem that would beset the Porsche, the Mercedes all race. This problem for the number 8 Porsche, fairly evident. The nose had come off, and Jürg Müller coming back into the pits with the wiring loom trailing on the road, and obviously a very obvious problem for them. Massive spin for Christoph Bouchou out of 5th place, got the car onto the curbs exiting the final turn and went round in a dizzying number of high-speed spins. Look at that again, on the belly of the car across the curbs, and it seems to pick up speed as it starts to spin. Well, riding with the Panos and the Bernard Brabham car, just avoiding the spinning number 2 Mercedes, which was collected by the 12 car, Jean-Marc Gounon. Well, that was a problem for the number 2 machine. But despite that, it continued. Klaus Ludwig and Ricardo Zonta's challenge was not yet over. Battling with the Works Porsche and the Persson Motorsport cars, and Austria really gave us a very exciting race at the head of GT1. Schneider and Webber leading by just 4 seconds from Lagos and Tanso in the Panos, with Bernard Brabham racing in the American series for the Panos team. GT2 being led, do I need to tell you, by 51 car. But Austria was not to be their race. Carl Wendlinger and Justin Bell doing a great job to lead the category after Barretta and Lamy ran into early problems that you saw there in slow motion. Bruno Eichmann joined by Mike Hasemans in the 57 Rook car. Pit stop time, and Bernd Schneider bailing out to hand over to Mark Webber. The number 1 car, another smooth pit stop by the AMG team. Klaus Ludwig watching the monitors, having done his job as Ricardo Zonta tries to go out and win the race. On board once more with the Panos, and the French pair doing a great job. Jean-Marc Gounon leaving the pits in the number 12 Persson Motorsport car, having lost time mid-race, as had the Panos. The number 2 Mercedes leading the GT1 rankings from the number 1 car of Schneider and Webber. Bartels being joined by Max Angelelli in the Zaxby Porsche in third place, ahead of Alan McNish and Yannick Dalmas. Jean-Marc Goudon, Marcel Tiemann battling with the Zaxby car and their teammates in the number 11 car, Bouchou and Mailander, and once more problems for Beretta and Lamy. They weren't leading the class and they were having pit stop problems. So Karl Wendlinger, who'd had a very torrid time in qualifying at his home circuit in Austria, finding that the race now, unlike qualifying, seemed to be coming to him. Great inter-Nissan battle between the two-person motorsport cars for third place. Jean-Marc Goudon, Marcel Tiemann just leading Christophe Bouchou and Bernd Mailander. And with the speed of the V8 cars and the Works Porsches, those two quite often finding themselves in a battle just between themselves. And Austria, a very good example of that. Ricardo Zonta leading as the Person Motorsport number 11 car fires its way out of the pit lane. After its pit stop, the number 12 sister car coming down the other side of the guardrail on the racetrack. This is a drag race between the two, but Bernd Mailander gets it all wrong, hits the barrier, exiting the pit lane, and goes straight into retirement. Well, trying desperately to keep his track position alive against his teammates after the pit stop. He's absolutely livid with himself. And there it is. The two cars side by side. And Mailander slamming into the pit wall. And the Person Motorsport team a bit bewildered, but not half as bewildered as Bernd Mailander. He just couldn't believe he'd done that. Battle for third then between the number 7 Porsche of Yannick Dalmas and the number 6 Zaxby Porsche, Michel Bartels. Great onboard camera work once more, showing us the heart of the action. And the two 911 GT198 cars, the factory cars and the Zaxby cars, battling away for position. The Panos just about to head into retirement with low oil pressure. The oil pressure was low because it was all pouring out of the engine, up the back of the car and onto the track. So another strong run from the Panos, not to end in a podium position. Klaus Ludwig being shown there in the inset as Ricardo Zonta motors through to win the number 2 car. And Mercedes 5th 1-2 of the year, their 8th victory. This time Ludwig and Zonta leading home Schneider and Webber. Once more ahead of Dalmas McNish in a podium position for Porsche.
3 points, only difference now. I spun because there was oil and I came on the oil. Marcel the same, so we made a double tulip. But for me, it's the last race in Europe, and for me it's so fantastic to win. I was really crying. I was so happy. Unbelievable.
Klaus Ludwig winning his last ever race in Europe. He had announced his retirement, and Karl Wendlinger winning his only race of the year. But at least it was at home in Austria. Good result for the lanky ex-Formula 1 driver. So Ludwig, Zonta, Schneider and Webber, Mercedes 1-2 once more. The Works Porsche in third place. The Zaxby car a strong 4th ahead of the Person Motorsport car in 5th. And Bashir and Lees gaining a point once more from reliability. Schneider and Webber leading by just 3 from Ludwig and Zonta. This battle will continue all year. Yannick Dalmas and Alan McNish now starting to distance themselves from the rest of the teams in 3rd place in the championship. Wendlinger and Bell winning here from Beretta and Lamy. Conrad and Hager in 3rd place, the best of the GT2 Porsches. But Beretta and Lamy confirmed as series champions. Karl Wendlinger could not now catch them. Olivier Beretta and Pedro Lamy, the GT2 winners for 1998. Join us for more action in a moment as the series ends in the States.